This video is an AI reconstruction inspired by period records, created to tell a story with cinematic language.
On the open deck, the crossing still looks steady. Lights hold firm, the sea is black, and the cold is so sharp you can see every breath. Couples stroll with first-class poise, and Isidor and Ida move side by side like it is any other night. In 1912, no one expects a choice that involves rules, priority, and separation. What if a chance exists, but the price is being pulled away from the person beside you? Before we reach that moment, like the video and subscribe to follow the full reconstruction, scene by scene. In the first-class corridors, routine still feels intact. Warm lighting, thick carpet swallowing footsteps, crew moving without urgency. Isidor walks with a composed posture, and Ida keeps pace at his side, the way you do when you trust the world around you. That sense of control comes from the environment itself, built to feel predictable. But on ships, the first thing that changes is the flow. More people moving, more doors being checked, more eyes searching for guidance. Before any broad announcement, information travels through the crew's motion. Out on deck, for a breath of air, the Titanic reinforces its scale. Rows of chairs, polished railings catching the light. A sea that looks calm enough to believe. The couple crosses the promenade like people who understand the unspoken rules of the space, never drifting far from each other. Their confidence does not come from words. It comes from signals. The engines feel steady. Service still runs. The lights do not flicker. That is exactly why so many took so long to accept real danger once the night turned. In 1912, an ocean liner this size was presented as a reliable machine, until the moment the machine has to prove it in real time. Behind the scenes, the crossing depends on analog routines, repeated until they feel automatic. On the bridge, officers work with charts and mechanical instruments. Up high, lookouts scan the horizon for any break in the darkness. The Marconi room keeps communications moving in code, with paper logs, not screens. Below, engines and valves hold the ship's pulse. In normal conditions, these worlds barely touch. When something breaks the pattern, they have to converge fast, and every minute becomes an operational decision. On board, the ship is not the same path for everyone. Some corridors are wide and quiet, others are narrow, crowded with luggage and bodies. In the transition zones, traffic thickens and space becomes a resource. Isidor and Ida pass through calmly, but they notice the movement swelling around them. On a big ship, stairways and doors feel like small details. In an emergency, they define time and direction. The difference between arriving and being delayed starts with simple things: a clear passage, reliable lighting, basic orientation. When the night changes, details become the deciding factor. In the internal service areas, everyday order keeps rolling. Carts, trays, swing doors, steam in work corridors. Passengers do not see it. For the crew, it is constant logistics. In a risk scenario, that logistics changes purpose. Hand out life belts, direct routes, clear corridors. The ship can still feel normal in many spaces, and that delays the public's perception of danger. But routine starts showing exceptions: faster footsteps, repeated checks, lanterns moving where they should not be needed. That is how an emergency settles in without loud panic. As the night grows colder, the open deck empties and the wind takes over the soundtrack. Isidor and Ida walk close to the rail, breath visible, posture braced against the gusts. The sea stays calm, and that contrast is deceptive. The surface does not reveal what is happening along the hull. On crossings like this, the absence of visual drama can create a false sense of safety. What changes first is the density of crew in certain areas and the quiet preparation of equipment. Once a procedure begins, it rarely reverses. Up high, the lookout works with almost no visual reference. Cold biting hard, rigging lines vibrating in the wind. The bridge remains lit, and the ship holds course with the appearance of stability. From the deck, constant light suggests control. For the men operating it, attention never stops. Watch, report, react. In 1912, without electronic aids, perception depends on trained eyes and fast communication. A small delay between seeing and acting can become a huge difference in distance, and in that gap, risk closes in. The impact is not an explosion, it is a short, wrong vibration, like the hull scraping something solid. Isidor stops mid-step. Ida grips the railing and looks forward, trying to understand what changed. Then the clearer signs appear. Crew with lanterns move with contained urgency, slipping into technical passages, reappearing, disappearing again. Information spreads like procedure, not like an announcement. The ship is still brightly lit, and that confuses anyone who has not watched the internal movement. But when technicians start running, it means something is being confirmed and handled. The response shows up in objects. Cork lifebelts appear, doors get checked, traffic is guided upward. Isidor tightens the straps under his coat. Ida does the same, keeping contact and rhythm, refusing to split. The immediate goal is to reach the right point without clogging the flow. The lights still hold steady, and that makes many people minimize the danger. But the pattern of movement changes. More bodies moving up, more crew guiding, more control at key choke points. When the upper deck becomes the destination, the ship is already in emergency mode. On the boat deck, the scene is pure operations, blocks and tackle, ropes, lifeboats being readied under hard lantern light and cutting wind. Officers manage the line in short waves, avoiding a crush at the edge. Isidor and Ida reach the loading point without fighting for space, watching who is allowed through first. Like the video and subscribe to support this historical reconstruction, because right after this, when a seat still exists and the rule is enforced right there at the lifeboat's edge, the couple's decision happens in the most visible place on the deck. It changes the tone of everything that follows. On the bridge, the response is entirely analog. Nautical charts, engine order telegraphs, commands sent through speaking tubes and by messengers. No radar, no screens. Assessment depends on position, speed, and internal reports, confirmed by repeated checks. In the Marconi room, the operator organizes messages and transmits distress calls in code, logging everything on paper. Meanwhile on deck, lifeboats stop being equipment and become the primary survival route. The emergency is not one single scene. It is a chain of tasks linked together, and that chain costs time. Evacuation finds a repetitive rhythm. Move forward, stop, reorder, move again. The cold steals fine motor control, and damp wood demands short, careful steps. Isidor and Ida stay together, watching who must go first, never trying to cut the line. The crew works under rope tension, pulleys squealing, communication reduced to gestures. Every boat that drops lowers the number of options for those left behind, and that changes the behavior around them. Without a word spoken, the deck reveals the truth. The window is closing.
This video is an AI reconstruction inspired by period records, created to tell a story with cinematic language.
The practical rule takes over at the loading point. Women and children first. An officer signals boarding, and the couple arrives at the edge where the decision has to be immediate. Ida steps back and keeps her hand on Isidor's arm, making it clear there will be no separation. Isidor makes a quiet refusal, then shifts away from the edge, freeing space for another woman to step in. It is simple, final, no visible argument. From that moment on, they leave the core of the line and move toward a less congested stretch of deck. After the refusal, Ida turns the decision into something practical. She passes a coat to another woman exposed to the wind, reducing the immediate risk for someone who will live. Isidor guides them toward the deck chairs, where the flow thins and balance is easier to keep. They sit side by side, close, adjusting their bodies against the cold and the gusts. Behind them, the work continues, rope sliding, wood groaning, lanterns swaying. From the outside, the ship still looks whole, 4 funnels, lights burning, but the deck is already operating like a closing procedure. The deck starts emptying by sections, and the sounds become more structural. Groans from the hull, vibration through the rail, metal popping under tension. Officers redirect people still searching for a place to board, while the last resources are prepared with controlled speed. The lighting grows more uneven, shadow pockets forming between lanterns. In wide shots, the Titanic sits lower in the water, reflections trembling on the dark sea. The sequence suggests a simple fact. It is no longer about whether something will happen. It is about how much time is left to act. Inside, the emergency becomes physics. Light fixtures sway, corridors pick up a tilt, objects begin to slide. In technical spaces, the crew tries to contain and isolate sections, shut valves, answer leaks, work under constant vibration. It is not non-stop chaos. It is mechanical effort trying to slow an advance that does not stop. Moisture appears where it used to be dry, and that changes what routes are even possible within the ship. These signs connect what you see on deck to what is happening along the hull. When the structure shifts, time stops being a feeling and becomes a measurement. On the boat deck, the operation reaches its endgame. Check the fittings, control the drops, launch what can still be launched safely. Communication with the outside relies on period tools, like signal rockets that tear across the sky and light the sea for a few seconds at a time. In that flare, the ship's scale becomes obvious, and so does the concentration of work along the deck edge. Isidor and Ida stand together again, adjusting their posture to a floor that is no longer level. The procedure keeps going, but the environment already shows the margin is almost gone. From here on, gravity sets the pace. In wide view, the Titanic looks more angled, the bow lower, the stern higher. Lights still visible, but less stable. In the distance, lifeboats are already out on open water, and priority becomes getting clear of the hull. Long strokes cut through freezing water. Lanterns are shielded from the wind. Blankets get pulled tight to conserve heat. Sound takes over, water slapping, wood creaking, wind constant. From a lifeboat, the ship becomes silhouette and light. On the horizon, a faint glow begins to build, a reference point that could mean rescue. The next hours are silent endurance. The body loses dexterity. Ropes stiffen in the cold. The boat settles into routine. Row, adjust position, protect hands and face. Slowly, points of light become steadier, signaling a ship closing in. A crewman points the heading so effort stays focused and energy is not wasted. The sea remains low, but it cuts like a blade, and the sky lightens into a strip of gray. It is the transition from immediate survival to probable rescue, but only if the approach is careful, so the small boat is not rolled by the larger ship's wake. As dawn begins to show, the lifeboats pick out steady light and the shape of the Carpathia rising through mist. She comes in slowly to avoid creating dangerous side swell, holding position at low speed. Rescue begins the old way. Lines thrown, boats drawn in carefully, improvised climbs up to the deck. No modern technology, just rope, hands, discipline, and time. Every approach has to avoid wood slamming against steel. From here, the focus shifts. It is no longer evacuate, it is recover, one boat at a time. Climbing up to the Carpathia is physical and slow. Rope ladders sway, wet gloves slip. Each rung demands a pause. Crew grab forearms and control the pace so the edge does not jam with bodies. The moment someone reaches the deck, the priority is warmth and flow. Blankets, hot drink, simple triage. Care is practical because the number of survivors rises quickly and the cold takes its toll. While some are guided into sheltered areas, the crew keeps pulling in boats. When recovery ends, the Carpathia takes a steady course as daylight fully arrives. Inside the rescue ship, everything becomes emergency accommodation. Benches filled, corridors crowded, wet clothing dripping onto the floorboards. Crew pass out blankets and cups, while the doctor makes quick checks to separate those who need immediate shelter. It is 1912. Simple lighting, basic supplies. Organization by presence, not by modern systems. Down in the engine room, the job is to keep steam and stability to reach port. Up on deck, some look back and see only empty horizon, and the absence of Isidor and Ida stops being a possibility. They are not among the recovered. With full daylight, the Carpathia moves as transport and refuge at the same time. Survivors remain wrapped up, sitting or leaning where they can. The crew begins collecting lifebelts and organizing gear used in the rescue. Navigation follows period methods: charts, observation, sextant, no electronic aid. The sea stays cold, the wind keeps pressing, but the heading is now steady and safe. In patches of fog, visibility drops and the pace adjusts, attention sharpening again. When the coastline appears as a dark band in the distance, the journey enters its final act, arriving with whoever is left. Approaching port changes the scene. Heavier water, small craft crossing the channel, industrial shapes rising through haze, tugs pass by, and the Carpathia slows even more to keep control for docking. On deck, survivors line the rail, watching piers and movement on shore under light rain. On the dock, preparation is immediate. Lines ready, bollards, open space, early century press cameras waiting. The city arrives as distant noise and a mass of people, the opposite of the ocean's silence. The ship enters the docking corridor at minimal speed. Docking is manual work. First, the heaving line, then the thick hawser, tension biting into the bollard as the hull is brought under control. The gangway is set carefully to keep a continuous flow and prevent falls on wet planks. Medical teams and volunteers form an exit corridor, while police hold back the crowd and carve out the smallest possible path. The press records it, but the priority is safety and pace. With lines secured, the Carpathia comes to a full stop. From here, rescue stops being an operation at sea and becomes a public arrival. Disembarkation unfolds like procedure, not celebration. A slow line, blankets, careful steps, exhausted faces. Volunteers pass out wraps and guide people towards sheltered areas, while teams move stretchers without exposing details. Behind barriers, relatives and onlookers press forward, trying to recognize someone under hats and rain. The contrast is immediate. A crowded port, a still ship, a group returning in shock, carrying confirmed loss. Dock water reflects the hull and distorts the lights under falling drops. The story closes here. Survivors on solid ground, and Isidor and Ida absent from the list of those who stepped down.